Hey everyone, it's Jodi Eamon here. Hello. I know it takes a second for people to get on. If you're watching later, don't you hate when the person live is kind of talking to wait for their audience and you're like, get to the stuff. Get to the stuff. So I'm going to get right to the stuff. So I'm Jodi Eamon, and many of you out there know that I have struggled with anxiety. That's something that I suffered from when I was 5 years old. I'm going to tell my story today because I haven't told it really. Hi, Nikki. I haven't told it really in a long time. So I do tell it in here. So if you've read the book, it's in there. All right. So I was introduced to anxiety when I was just 5 years old, and I was coming home from Indian Princesses. That was a program for fathers and daughters at the at the Y. Hi everybody. You guys are all available during the day. And it, with my dad, it was in February, so it was almost, oh gosh, how old am I? It was almost 40 years ago. In a couple weeks, it would be 40 years ago that this happened. I'm telling this story about. And it was February. We were learning about the presidents, Lincoln and Washington. And when we got back to my house, it was like snowing. It was beautiful. I was just carefree. I mean, I was just this kid who had, you know how much energy I have now? Well, when I was little, I had that too. I was just like bountiful and joyful. And I asked my father where the presidents were now. And oh, thank you. Yeah. He said, he got kind of, I could see in his face change. And he said, they're dead. And I was still kind of joyful. And I was like, what's dead? I was still, a little kid not knowing that they're suffering in this world yet. I was lucky, And so he said, dead is, he got really pale and his neck got really long. And I knew dead was bad just by the look on his face. And he said something, I don't even know what he said, like, everyone dies and you can't, you don't live anymore. And I thought, oh my gosh. All that security that I thought I had wasn't there. If you could lose that, if you could lose someone you love, or you lose your own life, or lose everything, if you could lose it, then there's no security at all, ever. And so I felt like I had no choice but to be anxious because life felt really out of control. And the fact that I'd suffer a lot felt really out of control to me. And so for months, I lost a third of my body weight. And for months, I was just really stressed. And my mom had to read to me. And when one book stopped, I'd start going. My mind would go and she'd have to pick up another book really quick and start reading it. And over the next 20 years, anxiety came and went in my life. It came sometimes and it left. And I really didn't know. I just ran away from it when it came. I didn't even call it that. I thought it was nausea. That's what I thought it was. But I was definitely having anxiety and panic attacks. But I would call them, and I hated nausea because I hated anxiety. It feels so horrible. And if any of you've had it, you know how horrible, awful, totally horrible it feels. And so it came and went in my life, but I didn't feel like I had anything to do with that change and that coming and that going. And so I just, suffered. Ran away as best I could. It was just kind of cowering over my shoulder all that time. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that I was working in a psychiatric center as a social worker. Probably I went to social work, right? Because, the wounded healer, I was really lonely and depressed and anxious all through growing up. And there's a lot of chaos around me. So I figured out when I started to help people in high school that gave me some life. It gave me a purpose. And so that's why I went to social work. So I was working in this is the opening story of my book, actually. Well, I was working in no, it's not. It was originally, I'm sorry, forget it. It's not. It was originally, I edited it a long time ago before the book came out, but I was sitting in a meeting and someone was talking about their clients. They were talking about their clients who had incredible anxiety and was like picking their face and couldn't leave the house and couldn't talk and couldn't make decisions. And I remember that meeting, and it had been happening for weeks, that I recognize that I was worse than these people. Like, people were talking about their hardest cases so the psychiatrist could tell them what to do, how to go forward. And I felt like my anxiety was worse than all of theirs. So I started to panic, anxiety started to rise. I tried to tether myself by like looking at patterns or, trying to pay attention, whatever, but my mind was gone. And I thought that people could look at my face and see that I was upset. And I know I did. I had that look on my face. Like I would get really pale and I'd have that, my eyes would kind of sink in, and I would have that look on my face when I was really anxious. I couldn't stay in that meeting. I was like, I gotta go. Remember, I ran. I kept running away from anxiety. Like I could run away from it. But it was, bothering me. So when I ran, it came, So I ran out the door. And I ran down the stairs and like dove into my car. And as I was backing up, I kind of caught myself in the mirror, in that rearview mirror. I was pale. My neck was really long. Who did I look like? I was like my dad, right? I learned that. I learned about that suffering, and I had that same look. And so I took a breath, and I was okay. And I took another breath, felt a little bit better. And I thought, if I could learn this, then I could unlearn it. I could unlearn this feeling. And so I decided, I made that commitment right then and there. I kept breathing, and I felt a little bit better. And I was in my body. I wasn't running in that moment, still sitting in my car, clutching my wheels, my steering wheel, literally saying, I'm getting back in the driver's seat, right? And I said, I'm stopping running, and I'm going to figure this out. And I'm going to research. So I did like alternative medicine, Ayurveda, and mindfulness, and I did yoga, and I learned whatever I could. And I found these 3 steps to feeling better that I've been talking about. And they're understand it biologically, learn the lies that it tells, and cultivate your control. And I talk about them in a lot of my videos. I'm not going to go into them, but like I totally cured my anxiety. Thank you so much. I totally cured my anxiety with this. And now then, as a therapist, I helped thousands of other people, kids, teenagers, adults, everybody who would, who wanted help getting rid of their anxiety. I would kind of go through this step process that I'd learned. And I cured myself so much. And this is a story that I haven't told publicly. But when my son, Leo, who's now 17, when he was 6 years old, we had a call from my husband's ex-wife that my stepson had meningitis. And you all know that diagnosis is pretty much a very quick death sentence. And so my husband was gathering stuff around the house to go be at his bedside, getting a bag of sweatshirt, whatever. And my little 6-year-old said, Mommy, is Kaylin gonna die? And I knew Ted heard that little voice saying that heartbreaking question. And so I made my face okay. And I smiled, and I looked at him and I said, everyone dies, honey, but we'll handle it. It's going to be okay. And I'm a little serious now, but I tried to lighten as much as I can and just smile at him and say, and he ran away and didn't think any more of it. Like, I stopped the legacy, right? He never asked any more questions about it. And thank God it was viral meningitis. Cal survived. He did great. He's fantastic. And still, so he's 25 and he's great. So a good ending. But I cured myself so much of anxiety, so much, like it's gone so much from my life, even when the worst happened. Even in that moment when we thought we were going to have the worst tragedy a family could have, I didn't pass it along. So thank you for listening. I hope that it was inspiring in a way to know that if you get this, and I've been reading, a lot of people are sharing about this today because I want to get the word out so as many people can get it as possible. But a lot of people are saying this is the 3rd person who said it's the best self-help book they ever read. And maybe I haven't really read or heard everybody's thoughts, so maybe more people think that. I'm not sure, because it's so practical. So here I am. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so happy that you're all here, and I'd be happy to take a couple questions if anybody wants to ask me anything. And thanks, Jessica. I can't wait to read it either. I hope it helps. I've been hearing over and over and over again how much it's changing people because it's different. It's different than other books on anxiety. It's just different because, first of all, I take down the power of anxiety. And second of all, it is so practical. It is so easy. So easy. Anxiety's hard. This, getting rid of it, the way I break it down, it's easy. And who wants to stay suffering anymore? I tell you, not me. So I'm so appreciative. It looks like there's no questions here. Thank you so much for all my thumbs up and hearts. Maybe no one sent me a heart. I don't know. No, I think I got a couple. Anyway, I love you all. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you soon.